Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Carl Matchett. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks. It's nice of you to finally join us again as we approach this most historic of ending of the seasons.
Yeah, well, I thought after spending a week in France, letting them know where they're going wrong with their lives, I thought I'd come back and, do what I do. We have one game left in the Premier League, Carl. It is Liverpool versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. It is worth pointing out, and I've said it on the Daily Red today, it is worth repeating, I think. We are the first ever English team to go into the last game of a domestic season with a chance of still winning the quadruple. Like, that in itself is an incredible achievement.
Yeah, it's lunacy. It actually borders on unbelievability. I mean, it does highlight definitely the way that elite level football has trended to fewer teams being capable of winning trophies. But even aside from that, the fact that we have done it and are in a position to actually go on and win all of them, even if we don't, just to be there at this late stage, it's just phenomenal. It really is. It's as good as Man City are, and everything that they've thrown at getting bigger in the way that they have done, to still be a point away is just nonsense, regardless of what we've done in the cup competitions, to be honest. But when you combine that with winning them along the way and another chance of the big one that nobody else in England has,
exactly. And like you say, with City throwing everything, and by that, of course, you do mean cheating. By they're cheating, and we're still only a point behind them. It is incredible. And look, if we win a domestic, I think regardless of what happens from here to the end of the season, so 2 games, I think we've proven that we're the best team in England this season, regardless of whether they win the league or not, regardless of the Champions League final. The fact that we're in a Champions League final and they're not, the fact that we've got 2 cups in the bag and they don't, the fact that we've lost less games than them, scored more goals, conceded less goals, I think we've proven this season that we're a better team than them. I think they've had a little bit of fortune in the Premier League. I think they've had 3 games change on massive decisions that went in their favour. The Rodri handball, which was a blatant handball. The Moutinho handball, which was never a handball in a million years. And 2 of the decisions in the game against Arsenal, where Arsenal should have had a stonewall penalty and City got one for a dive. I think, for everybody wanting to call us, live VAR pool or whatever nonsense they want to do, City have been the ones that have benefited more from big controversial decisions this season. And that's why, if they win the league, it is going to be because of points picked up in those games. It'll be frustrating, but I still think we've proven we're a better team.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. I mean, depends how you want to classify best, obviously, as that's very wide-ranging and everyone can have their own opinions, whether it's just winning matches and getting the most points or whether it's playing the best type of football or whether it's being best at all competitions overall and your average finishing position for them, if you like. We're number 1 in the cup and number 1 in the cup and number 1 or 2 in the other cup and number 1 or 2 in the league. You're not going to get much better than that, to be perfectly honest. I don't really want to think about what the reaction would have been like if we hadn't have won against Southampton after the goal that they got given and VAR choosing not to overrule for what was, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not so much as an obvious foul, but just it's beyond obvious. It just is. He kicked him, and that's it. That's really all there is to it. it was just a bizarre turn of events. It can't possibly have been that it was too far back time-wise or in a different passage of play, because it wasn't. It was literally at the end of that move. It was just all of it really weird. I don't really like to go into VAR being a cause and effect of where the league title ends up. At the end of the day, I think we can probably look back at one specific performance this season, which we dropped points in which we shouldn't have because of a bad performance, and that was Leicester. But on the other hand, if you get to the end of a season and you've basically got one bad performance across all 4 competitions, I also don't think you can really complain about that as a supporter.
No, I don't either. But, it is that Redmond goal. It's the Villa goal the previous week. Also ridiculous because there's a clear offside. These rules are nonsense, and the VAR has been nonsensical on multiple occasions for us and against us this season. But yeah, you're right. Look, we need to focus in on the game. We have Wolves this weekend. Before we get to that, we were asked by somebody, we were asked by Shamik to do a Premier League version of a bang average 11 for this past season. So we have both put together teams, and let's start. What formation have you gone for here?
I have gone for a fairly average 3-4-3.
Okay, I've gone 4-3-3. Painfully average. Who's your goalkeeper?
It is Southampton's finest or second finest on any given week, Mr. Average McCarthy.
That's exactly who I've got as well. Alex McCarthy, a bang average Premier League goalkeeper. Moving then to defence. I'll give you my 4 and then you can give me your 3. I've gone Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back. I think he is bang average. Decent defensively, but fairly poor going forward. But he's generally 6 out of 10 most weeks, which for me is bang average. I've got Matt Targett, the Newcastle version, at left back. The Villa version was just flat out poor, but I think at Newcastle he has been 6 out of 10. Some of their fans quite excited by Matt Targett, but that's what happens when you watch Paul Dummett and the like play in that position for a couple of years. At centre-back, I've gone Pontus Jansson and Eric Dyer. 2 players for me who just define what it is to be bang average. So Wan-Bissaka, Dyer, Jansson and Matt Targett is my back 4.
That is exceedingly average. It almost put me to sleep listening to the names come out. That's how average it was. I had to reshuffle my defence around a little bit because I actually broke one of my own rules. We said in the spirit of averageness, we're not going to go for anybody with fewer than 4 starts in the league, and they've got to have no more than, 33 or 34? I said something like that starts. So they couldn't be an every week player or a never player either. Very, very average. In the end, I have gone for a back 3 of Gibson from Norwich, Ezri Konsa from Aston Villa, who is a very, very good defender, but he's not had his good season. He's been
minged this season, Carlos. What happened?
He's been extremely inconsistent, which on the face of it is not the biggest issue because he's a young defender and still only, getting towards 100, 150 games in the top flight. But you don't want to let this leak into a second season because then you stop being, a very good young defender and you become an average defender. So he needs to sort that out for next season. He's out now for, I think, about 12 weeks as well with an injury. So hopefully a full recovery over the summer. My third one is the one who I mentioned pre-pod. I said it's a bit of a worry when a totally average season sees you as actually one of the better players of the team, and that's Victor Lindelof of Man United.
Oh, that's a really good shout. I'm looking. Eric Dyer has already made 34 starts this season, and in all likelihood will make a 35th. Was that 34 starts? Let me see. Eric Dyer. Go on anyway. Go with the rest of yours. Is that the? So you've got Lindelof,
Gibson, and Konsa.
Ben Gibson
of Norwich fame.
The great Ben Gibson, Middlesbrough's finest, as Guy will tell you. Right, I want to see if Eric Dyer actually is allowed.
He's on 34 starts.
He is on 34 starts. That is not good.
Would it be
good.
Also acceptable to say that
No,
okay.
we're wrong. He appears to have come on as a sub, or did he go off?
No, he's made 34 starts.
So he went off early against Crystal Palace early in the season then. We may have to leave him out, I'm afraid. We may have to sub in a player because he is going to make a 35th start, and that would make him far too much of a regular. So I think I'm going to steal one from you. I'm going to unite them at centre-back. It is the Swiss pair of Victor Lindelof and Pontus Jansson. Swedish pair.
A nationality change as well there.
I feel like I should probably pick Emil Kraft at right back now, just to, give more IKEA feel to this team. But I'm going to go. I'll stick with. I can't have Lindelof because I've already got Wan-Bissaka, and you can only have one player per team.
You see, listeners, this is what happens when you go on holiday. You lose your edge.
Hagler Sianshu has been flat out shit this season, so he can't be in. I'll take Johnny Evans. I'll take Johnny Evans as my other centre back. I don't have a Leicester player, and Johnny Evans has been fairly bang average this season, which is what Johnny Evans generally is. So I'll go Johnny Evans next to Pontus Jansson, a nice old slow centre back pairing, and that'll do me. Right, moving into midfield then. What have you got?
At wing back, I have Johnny Evans' teammate, actually, Ricardo Pereira. He has not quite roared back onto the scene this year. He had a couple of good games when he started back from injury and again, but then has very, very quickly become standard Leicester fare and not really very fun to watch anymore, considering what he used to be. On the other side, I have Mr. Average wing back himself, Solly March. Reliable, steady, consistently average.
A model professional.
A model runner down the touchline. That's what he is. And central midfield pairing, Matthias Klich. I think he's probably been excused from the worst of Leeds' defensive performances by virtue of not really doing anything. Average. And I've also gone for Newcastle's Joe Willock, who has had a remarkable downturn since making his loan move permanent.
Yeah, who knew that, players performing really well in front of no crowds did not mean they were 20-odd million pound players. I think that's a solid midfield. Here's a question for you, off topic a little bit, but Ricardo Pereira, if you were Leicester City manager this summer and you had a fully fit James Justin back now, would you look to move Pereira on, knowing that this is probably the last summer you'll get a good fee for him, and he is looking like he might be declining a little bit?
If there was a good offer there, then yeah, I'd be tempted to take it. But I'll be honest, if I was Leicester manager, there would be a big old clear out and he wouldn't be at the top of the list, not even on the fullbacks top of the list. That would be Castagna, who I think has been an absolute shocker this year.
That's a typical Brendan Rodgers signing, is Castagna. So, you get what you get. A bit like Yannick Vestergaard. Right, my midfield three.
Vestergaard, by the way, 15 million signing. He has started in 2 wins in the league this season. I had a look at him yesterday.
He was fully fit and they were playing Wilf Ndidi at centre-back while Vestergaard sat on the bench. I considered in my midfield including Liverpool's club captain, but I don't even think he qualifies.
Tut.
I have gone for John McGuinness. Probably played too many games. He has probably played too many games. I'll give you my other 2 first anyway. I've gone for the 2 model professionals, 2 lads who define bang average. John McGinn gets in. He missed a few games. That's fine. John McGinn qualifies. I've gone for Mark Noble, a career of being bang average. He's a squad player now for...
You're not allowed him.
Why?
He's only made 3 starts.
He's starting the next game. Don't be foolish. Don't be foolish. He's going to start the weekend.
I don't know about that.
Right, I'll leave him out. Doff of the cap to Mark Noble, a defining bang average player of the last 15 years. Proof that if you're English and run a lot, you can get by. James Milner, bang average. He's in without question. 6 out of 10 most weeks, bang average. And I'll bring in James McArthur from Crystal Palace, who is another bang average player, steadying influence, a model professional, reliable, never lets you down, does it all for the team type of job. So I've got McGinn, McArthur, and Milner, with Mark Noble on the touchline giving them all, instruction on how to be bang average. You're playing a bit too well there. Settle down. And that's my back three. That's my midfield three then. McArthur, Milner, and McGinn. We've both got front threes. So give me your first one.
I've got a bit of a problem in that I can't actually read my own writing for one of these names. But on the right-hand side, I've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, who has been spectacularly average and done an incredible amount of nothing this season. Obviously another injury, obviously another out-of-favour run. Got a few games at wing-back, a few games in the forward line, a few games, coming on as a non-impact substitute. I think that's all perfectly average.
Yeah, he has had a very, very disappointing season, and if ever a fella needed to get a move away, I think it might be him. It's not all that long ago that people were talking about him in the same way we talk about Saka and Sancho and Foden and this immense young generation of English talent that's appearing. Hudson-Odoi was right in that group, and he has fallen by the wayside. It looks like he may well now change his international allegiance and go play for Ghana, which is a big, big get for them if they get him and Lamptey. That's a lot of fun. But I think that's a good sign. I've got Richarlison on the right of my front three. I think he's been painfully average this season. He may well just be a painfully average player, but there's just... in recent weeks, he's turned it on a little bit and he scored a couple of big goals. But if we go back to August and look at his performances all the way through, it is painful. So I've got Richarlison there. I'll give you my number 9 then. I've got Raul Jimenez. I think he has been disappointing this season from what we know he can be, but obviously the head injury has been a bit major factor. But I think this season he has been pretty bang average. Like, he still does a lot of decent things for the team, but more often than not, he's missing big chances, or, he's just not of the standard required. Only 6 goals this season. It's fairly bang average. So I'll go for him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Quick stat for you for Richarlison. He has had the exact same number of shots this season as he has committed fouls. Not really sure what that tells us about Everton.
No. No, it doesn't. It doesn't really open the eyes too much. But what a mess of a team! What an absolute mess of a team. Who's your 9?
My 9 is actually your 9's most average, best mate teammate. It's Hwang, who started the season looking like he would be a mighty fine addition and has since gone on to score a mighty average 1 goal since October in the Premier League. As far as forwards go, it's very, very Wolvesy. It's very, very average, and it very, very tees him up to score 4 at the weekend, no doubt.
Yeah, I had a feeling that when they announced that they'd activated the buy clause in his contract in the summer, in January rather, that they might end up regretting the decision. And
a bit Willocky.
A bit Willocky, yeah. A bit Joe Willock, a bit like, those teams that were tempted to pay big money for Jesse Lingard and then didn't, and are now very relieved that they didn't. Hwang and Joe Willock are the opposite of that. Right,
Dave.
Yo,
are we tempting problems here by both picking the Wolves number 9s?
No, because they're garbage, and we've got Virgil van Dijk.
Good
Ibu
stuff.
Konate, Joel Matip, and Joe Gomez. Well, Joe Gomez is going to miss out, but we've got Ibu, Matip, and Virgil. We're good. We're good. Those boys are on the beach. We'll get on to them, but like Wolves are the most on the beach team in the Premier League since the middle of February. So
I needed that reassurance, that's all.
Right. Who is your last player then?
It appears to be Jordan Ayew, although I have spelt his name with the Y and the W the wrong way round somehow. So it's Jordan Ayew.
Well, he may be this summer.
He might well be. He's not done anything to warrant staying anyway, so he's been pretty average.
Yeah, he has, and that is sort of him. He is the lesser Ayew brother. I think Andre's a vastly superior player, and yet Andre's found himself grafting away in the Championship for multiple seasons while Jordan has been playing Premier League football. Just a painfully average striker. What did he get this season? Like 2 goals? Something like that? Yeah, not great. Not great. I considered Jack Grealish in this last role, but I think that would be giving Jack Grealish too much credit for the season he's put forward. So I've gone with Josh King of Watford, who's just always struck me as a bang average player. And this season, I think he's been bang average. He's had a couple of decent performances, a couple of bad performances, but largely he's fairly just run of the mill, goes out, runs around a bit. Sometimes gets the ball, sometimes doesn't really care either way. I'll go Josh King as my third and final attacker.
Who's your captain? Who's the most average of the averageness?
Well, it would have been Mark Noble, but I'm not allowed to have him. I think I'll go John McGinn, because for me there's this, like, John McGinn is surprisingly highly rated for what he is as a footballer. And I know his progressive numbers are always quite good, but a lot of that is because he just boots the ball down the channel and lets players run after it. I'm not a fan. I'm going to go with him because the likes of MacArthur and Milner, they just are what they are. I mean, they get overhyped because intangibles and whatever else. But McGinn, I just don't see it with him. So John McGinn and his big fat arse, I'm going to go with him as my captain. Who's yours?
I'm going to go with Solly March. I think he's just, if you were playing
true.
Football Manager or FIFA, he'd just be like middle of the road stats for everything, wouldn't he? He'd be like crossing 10, stamina 12, passing 9, work rate 11.
Yeah,
dead down the middle.
He is the epitome of a bang average player. I do regret my decision not to pick Solly March, to be honest. Because what I really like about Solly March is it's not just that he's, bang average in his position. He can play 4 or 5 positions and he's bang average in all of them. He's just the same version of Solly March everywhere they put him. Look, Milner's made a career of being bang average in a bunch of positions, so it's not a knock on him. And to be fair, Milner early in his career was a good player in a 3. But at City and at Liverpool, he's just made a career and been bang average in a bunch of positions and been able to be dropped in here, there and everywhere to fill in. Solly March obviously doesn't have the career that Milner's had, but he is now he has been for his entire career, what Milner has been for probably the last, decade, however long since he joined City.
Do you know what's mad? Do you know what's mad? If you took Solly March and put him in Man United's team in the rebuild, he'd play the exact same way and would probably help the team.
Yeah, because he'd be 6 out of 10 every game. Like if you put him at Arsenal right now,
he's one of those players who'd give you stability wherever he is, whatever his teammates are like, whatever the system is. He will do the job which is needed. And I like quite a lot of the players I've picked in this team. It sounds kind of downplaying their abilities and that, but while that might be the case with some of them, it's not really. I like some of these players, and they've just been very, very average. And if you're average in the Premier League, let's be fair, we'd all take that. So,
but the thing with Solly March is, first of all, he's only 27, which is ludicrous to me because he's been around forever. But he's the same player now as he was when Brighton were in the Championship. he does the same things every single game. He scores between 1 and 3 goals pretty much every season. He's getting 3 goals in the Championship, his best Premier League season. He got 3 last year. He's just the same guy. He makes all the same decisions, does all the same things, and it's admirable, for sure. It's admirable. Like you said, if you can be a bang average Premier League player, that's a great career. Solly March has been in the Premier League now 5 seasons, and he's largely been, when fit, a regular for Brighton because he can fit in here, there, and everywhere. Those type of players do have value, for sure. Same thing goes for James McArthur. Like, excuse me. I think when McArthur's not in the Palace team, they miss him. When he's there, you might not notice him, but when he's not there, you do notice that he's not there because he makes those clever decisions. He keeps the ball. He doesn't charge out of position like an idiot to go and try and win something he can't win. He just does all the fundamental things. And that's what this is. Like, Wan-Bissaka, maybe less so. He relies a lot on athleticism. But Johnny Evans, Pontus Jansson and Matt Targett have good fundamentals. Like, they're well schooled. They've been brought up to play the right way. It's just that there's a talent barrier on how good they can be. Same thing with my midfielders. Now, I think Richarlison is a massive waste of talent. I think Josh King is a bang average player, and I think he's the same kind of thing. Does the right things, gets himself in the right positions, makes the right pass, but doesn't necessarily have the talent to take advantage of his... Remember Jurgen Klopp said about himself how he had, was it a Division 1 brain and a Division 4 talent or something like that? I think a lot of these players are a little bit like that. I think like the likes of McArthur and Matt Targett and that, not Division 4 talent. I think they've probably got Championship level talent, but they're well schooled, they're intelligent enough, and that's why they become valuable squad players at the Premier League level.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. You always need some of them in the squad or in the team if you're going to be a successful side. You know, they might not be the every single week players all the time. They might not be the ones who score the crucial goals and get the headlines and all the rest of it, but they get the job done game after game after game. You know, people like Shinji Okazaki would be a perfect representation of this.
Yeah, and like most of that Leicester title-winning team, like Danny Simpson, Christian Fuchs, Wes Morgan and Rob Huth, none of them are good defenders. None of them are bad defenders. They're all bang average. And because every single week they went out and they were 6 to 7 out of 10, that was good enough. The same thing in midfield with Danny Drinkwater, a bang average player. But because he could give them 6 out of 10 every week, and Mark Albrighton could do the exact same. Mark Albrighton actually should probably have gotten more consideration for our teams here. Those two were bang average. Okazaki was bang average. But then you had those, with all those giving you 6 and 7 out of 10 every single week. Then Mahrez and Kante and Vardy and Schmeichel giving you 8 and 9s most weeks was enough for Leicester to win the title. You know? It'll never happen again. And there's a James Milner interview with Alan Shearer where he says something about, I haven't read it, but something along the lines of, Graham Souness said, you'll never win anything with a team of Milners. And people use that as a stick to beat Souness with. But Souness was right. In general, you won't win a thing with a team of Milners. But if you can have a couple of Milners in your squad, that's what you need. Like, there's a reason for the first half of James Milner's career, he won nothing as a starter, and the second half of his career, he won everything as a squad player. He won titles and cups at City as a squad player, titles and cups at Liverpool as a squad player. In the years he was a starter for Liverpool, Liverpool won nothing. But as a squad player, he's got more value. So it's absolutely to be admired. Milner's had a great career, but his best has been as a squad player, and he's most valuable in that role. If he was starting every single game, we'd be fourth. it's just what it would be. Right. We should probably move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers, who we play this weekend. Wolves have won 3 of their last 13 games, 2 draws, and 8 defeats. They've been on the beach since beating Leicester in February. Their wins since that Leicester game, they beat a dreadful Watford team, a fairly dreadful Everton team, a mediocre Aston Villa team. They drew away with Chelsea because everybody draws at Chelsea these days or beats them. And they drew 1-1 with Norwich at the weekend. They have lost to Arsenal, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Leeds, Newcastle, Burnley, Brighton, and a hammering by Manchester City. Should we be scared of them in any way?
Should we be of anybody?
No.
The only scary bit here is that you have to beat them, if you know what I mean. You know, every team will try and raise their game to play Liverpool. You know, we've just had Southampton 1 win in 11 before they played us, and suddenly turn around and go, "Oh, this is our Champions League final." Why wasn't it your Champions League final 2 weeks beforehand? Why wasn't it your Champions League final for literally any other game that you've played over the last 3 months? And teams do this routinely, and it is a bit annoying, and it's a bit frustrating, and it can be a bit nervy at times as well. And some of the times, more Wolves than Southampton, let's say. But when they're playing well, when they were doing well earlier in the season, with a really, really good shape and a really hard-working defensive line, they weren't conceding very many chances at all. Not just goals, chances. You couldn't really get shots away against them and stuff like that. And that's why they were in a position to go for, let's say, 6th or 7th, really. Probably not any higher than that, but they could have got a 6th or 7th place finish if they'd have maintained their sort of, not even their best run of form across January, but let's say the September to November sort of form, where they were winning maybe 3 or 4 out of every 5 or 6 or 7 games. If they'd have carried on that through April and into May now, they would have been in the running for a European spot. But like you say, they've been pretty shambolic for the last 8 games or so, something like that.
And they're potentially going to fall out of the top 8 now, because Leicester are 3 points behind with a better goal difference and a game in hand tonight against Chelsea. And they play Southampton at the weekend at home. So Leicester could finish above Wolves, even though I don't think anyone could really make a case that this season Leicester have been a better team. I think Wolves have been the better team this season. Now, I think Leicester are a better team overall. I think they proved that over the last 2 seasons. Or not this season, last season, the year before. But Wolves really have just kind of thrown away what was, up until the middle of February, quite a good season for them.
Yeah, I mean, a drop from, even if it is, let's say, 7th down to 9th, it's cost them a couple of £1 million for the summer in prize money. It cost them, obviously, if they finish 7th, the possibility of being in Europe again next season, as that's, you know, where you're looking at now for Europa Conference League and all the rest of it. It probably undermines rebuilding plans to a certain extent. You know, people like Nevis maybe wanting to leave if they're just like 9th or 10th in mid-table versus 6th or 7th, or even only just finishing 8th, a point or so behind. When you picked up 2 points from the last 6 matches and Leicester have picked up 8, that's a big turnaround for mid-table teams. You know, that's how they've been able to close the gap, just by finishing a bit more strongly, while Wolves are, along with Saints and Norwich, which is just a standard affair, the teams who have just checked out 2 months early. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing with this Wolves team is there's quite a lot of talent there, but as you said, the likes of Neves isn't going to want to stick around and finish in mid-table every year. If you're not getting into Europe, he's not going to be interested. Not getting into Europe has likely cost them the chance to sign Trincao as well, who they did seem keen on keeping, but that one now seems to be going by the wayside. You look at the squad and, let's be fair, Jose Sa has had an outstanding first season in the Premier League. Both of us thought this is a bad signing. He was dreadful at Porto, wasn't impressive at Olympiacos. But over the course of this season, I think he's been very, very good for them. Like, Ramsdale got an awful lot of hype throughout the season. Jose Sa has been a much better performer this season for Wolves than Aaron Ramsdale was for Arsenal. I think we both need to, well, I need to say I was wrong about him. Now, we'll see how he does next season, because maybe it's just, a blip, but he has one really good season. But I think, to be fair to him, he has had a very good year.
Yeah, for sure. His shot stopping has been much more consistent and solid than it was beforehand. I absolutely maintain the fact that the clean sheets and the defensive record that they had was much more to do with the defensive organisation, which was a load more improved from last season, earlier on in this campaign. And how do you put it? Not work rate as such, but how quickly they were able to shift themselves around. People like Max Kilman really stepping up and being an improved part of that trio at the back. But yes, Sa in one-on-ones and with any kind of shot stopping was a lot better than I expected him to be fair. I have seen some wild stats thrown out suggesting that he's, the best goalkeeper in the league and the best goalkeeper around most of Europe this season, based on basically the differentials between the shots numbers that he's faced, the number of goals that those shots would, not by XG of individual shots, but an average of shots, how many you would normally concede and how many he's saved, just to point out how that doesn't quite translate to what you're trying to make it say to those people. The actual record holder for that particular stat is Simon Mignolet, 2013-14. So if you want to judge that as the height of elite goalkeeping, be my guest.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. In defence, you mentioned Max Kilman. I think he has been really, really good this season. May well have a case for an England call-up at some point, but we'll wait and see how he does next season. Because again, one season, a lot of players do well for one season. Cody obviously is just what he is. He's fine in a 3. He struggles in a 4. I think the same is true of whether it's Willy Bolly or Romain Saiss. They're fine in a 3. They can't play in a back 4. And that's probably why Bruno Lage has been forced to play a back 3 this season, because he wants to play a 4. Same as Thomas Tuchel wants to play a 4. But when you don't have the individual defenders to play in a back 4, it's sometimes just easier to play a back 3. You look at what Tuchel has done with Rudiger, who was on his way out of the club, couldn't get a game in a back 4 because he was all over the place, but has looked really, really good in a 3. Same thing with Thiago Silva, looked finished in a 4 at PSG, playing in a 3 at Chelsea. He's obviously done very well. I think Chalobah's done really well in a 3 this year, but I wouldn't trust him in a 4. I think that's been the case at Wolves with these defenders as well. I know they overpaid for him, but I do think Nelson Semedo's had a decent season at right wing back. I think Rayan Aït-Nouri is the real gem that they have defensively. I think he looks like the type of guy that could play for a really top team.
Yeah, I've liked Aït-Nouri for quite a few years now, actually. I think I put him down as one of the ones for potential backup for Robbo before we obviously went and signed Costas on one of our podcasts. I think that they've got a few players who you could say they could build a new iteration of this team around, regardless of whether they stay in a 3 or a 4, to be honest. But you're looking at people like Moutinho at 35, Saiss at 32. Even Jimenez has obviously not been able to recapture his best level after the injury, which is understandable, but he's 31. Marçal, 32, 3, something like that. These people they're going to need to be phased out or just outright replaced fairly soon. And I think that they have got, even if people like Gibbs White hasn't quite gone on to be at the level, we've seen Keanu Hover maybe linked with a move away, but they've still got people like Pedro Neto there. They've got Beno Podence, who's still only 26, Aït-Nouri at 20. These people can form the basis of a really, really strong side still. And as much as maybe he wants to play a 3 with some of those centre-backs needing it, Aït-Nouri, I think, probably allows him to be at his best just with nobody ahead of him too much and just able to attack as a wing-back rather than a full-back quite often.
Yeah, but I would be interested to see if they could play a 4-2-3-1. I would be interested to see him and Neto as a left flank. I think there's real potential with the two of those. Like, you look at it, and I think Hoiver has big potential, but I think he has to play as a fullback in a 4, not as a wing back. If he's playing in a back 3, I think he has to play the right-sided centre-back role, and I'm not quite sure he's physical enough to do that in the Premier League. But, you know, if you've got Semedo and Hoiver as right-back options, Aït-Nouri as a left-back, Kilman as a centre-back, if you could get a good centre-back in next to Max Kilman, you might have potentially a back 4 that you can develop. Neves, then Donker, you'd probably need one more in midfield to replace Moutinho, who seems like he might move on. Gibbs White, as you mentioned, he hasn't done it for them, but he has had a very good season on loan for Sheffield United, playing in a more attacking role. They've got Neto, they've got Gibbs White to come back. They really should have had Concalves, but they binned him off after 2 years for basically nothing, and he's gone on to develop into a star in Portugal. They had Vitania in on loan with an option to buy. It didn't work because Nuno couldn't get the back 4 to work, so they couldn't play him as the 10 they planned to play. They planned to have him and Pedence kind of platooning as a number 10, with the idea that Pedence would get sold because his value would go up and Vitania would be the replacement, but that hasn't been able to work out because they couldn't play a back 4, and Pedence just isn't as good in the wide role in a front 3 as he is kind of tucked in behind the striker. Trinkia, like I mentioned, ideally you want to play 4-2-3-1 with him on the right. They haven't been able to do that, so he hasn't shown his best. And the striker options just haven't worked. I mean, Jimenez was great before the injury, poor this season, or average this season. Hwang average this season. And the one they spent big money on, Fabio Silva, was nowhere near ready to make that move when they bought him. And they spent, was it 40 million on him? 35 million? And he hasn't scored this season in 26 games. He got 4 goals in 37 last year. Ideally, you'd be looking to loan him out and get somebody else in. But, you know, you're talking about centre-back, holding midfield, either Trinkia or a replacement for him, and a striker. That's 4 big needs. It's a lot of money to spend, and that's before we factor in, well, maybe you have to replace Ruben Neves as well. Now, I know Neves would bring in a big fee, but are they going to be able to attract someone as good as Ruben Neves? It doesn't seem likely. They're in a tough situation going into next season, I think, where there's a lot of work for Bruno Lage to do, and I don't know that I trust their recruitment, because they're so blinded to making sure they get all these Portuguese players in for whatever reason. Like, it's ridiculous to look at a team with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Portuguese, 12 Portuguese players on their books, registered in their first team. They only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then you have 10 English players. And they've got 12 Portuguese players. That's just bizarre. Is it? Maybe it's just me. I find that bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's okay if it's, you know, the club culture and they've purposely done it that way. But is it sustainable? Is it still going to carry on making you a profit-making side? Is that what they want to be? Is it going to keep them growing and being a team which can regularly contribute towards at least challenging for the European spots? I mean, like I said, they're not a million miles away, but if they do go on and sell Neres and Moutinho this year in particular, you got to build a new midfield, a completely new midfield, however that is structured and however the manager is thinking of playing. You need a new engine room, which is a big thing to do. Are you going to restrict yourself by only looking at Portugal or Portuguese players? And that in itself would be an odd thing to do, unless they have already identified, like quite a while ago, really, really strong candidates for that role who they absolutely want, and it's just incidental. That's just where their recruitment strength is, or where their analysis is deepest, or whatever it is. I mean, it's very limiting seeming, and I don't think it would be sustainable for too long.
No, I don't think it's sustainable for the long term. I really don't. In terms of what to expect from them this weekend, they do have a couple of injury issues that they're dealing with. So they will be without Kilman, So that's a big blow. They'll be without Nelson Semedo. That's obviously also a big blow. And they're without Roman Saiz. So, I mean, it's going to be a patchwork defence for them. And it's not really ideal when you're coming in to play Liverpool. So if we look at the team that played Norwich, Bolly, Cody and Gomes played as the back three. Johnny Otto played right wing back, Aït-Nouri left wing back. Neves and Matinho were in midfield, and then they had Jimenez, Hwang and Neto as a front three. Are you expecting much change from that?
I don't think there's loads of possibility to do so, is there, at the minute? I mean, especially at defence, like you said, with probably three who would always be starting, not there. You could, because it's the last game of the season, they've basically got nothing to play for other than do they stay in that place or do they go down one place? Is it going to be something where the manager's looking a little bit like Hasenhüttl did and make a couple of changes, maybe from a tactical perspective, maybe giving someone like Jim Campbell another opportunity? There might be a young player or two involved.
That's about all they can do, really, is, you know, maybe try and take a look at what they have available to them for next season, see if these young players that they have are ready, if they're capable of playing at this level. Could Luke Cundle get a game? Jem Campbell, you mentioned. Chiquinho might get a start. He's looked exciting enough when he's had his opportunities. But yeah, I mean, look, they have been on the beach. They are very much in sort of season's over. We've survived. We're top half. That's fine. We'll take a top half finish sort of mode. And it does leave the door open for Liverpool to go and win this game without much fuss. Now,
I would like it to be without much fuss. Do we really think it will be?
That's the thing.
When it comes down to it, right?
I think it will be. I think if we can get an early goal, I think it puts it to bed.
If we could get an early goal, that would be lovely. Honestly, I think that they would just say, sod it and switch off to a certain extent. I know, professionalism and all the rest of it. We see it year after year. Teams who have got nothing to play for, they'll win 6-3 on the final day of the season, or they'll lose 2-5 or whatever it is, and it's just a thing that happens, You look at it, and basically what Liverpool need to do is whatever for anything else, just win the game. Now, realistically, just looking at the basic numbers of recent form, does it look like Liverpool would win the game? Well, how many goals do Wolves tend to score a game? The answer is about 1. Like, they scored twice against Chelsea, but they haven't scored more than once other than that game since the start of April. How many do they generally tend to concede? Well, they haven't kept a clean sheet for 2 months, and that was against 10-men Everton. They concede, 11 in the last 4 games, something like that? It should be a case of Liverpool being able to create at least 2 goals. At least. Just by recent form, players that they got in the team, how they've been playing, all that kind of thing. Take out who's going to start from for Liverpool, and Liverpool are much better than people like Norwich and Chelsea and Brighton, who they've played recently, all that kind of thing. We should be capable, like everybody else, of creating a couple of goal-scoring chances which end up in the back of the net. As long as you're not completely wasteful in front of goal, at the very least, this should be 2-1 to Liverpool. That's before considering anything at all. And if we have everything to play for and some early news comes through from somewhere else or whatever it is, and we just go all out, yes, you could see this being a bit of a quicker scoreline, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. And that's the hope, is that we can... If we can get an early goal and we get news from the Etihad that, Villa are causing City problems and City are struggling to break them down, which, Tyrone Mings, it can lift things. And these players will know that we're in a situation where something historic is here on the line. They have, at every big moment, our team have turned up this season. And you would expect them, knowing what they need, you would expect them to go out and get the win here. Yeah. Now, we know that Fabinho won't play, and we know that Joe Gomez won't play. Mo and Virgil are probably fit enough to play, but I don't know that it's really worth the risk of playing either of them.
Yeah, it depends how close they are to 100%, doesn't it? Because you don't really, if it's not necessary, want them to go 2 weeks without playing at all before the Champions League final. But you don't want to take any risks on them missing that either. So we've seen before where, even if someone like Salah or Mane or whoever is going to get rested for a game by being on the bench, they'll still come on and play like 20, 30 minutes just to keep them, in a bit of rhythm, still give them a bit of game time and involvement and all the rest of it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen with at least one of them. I think with Van Dijk, there's less of an issue with that because he's shown that he can, miss a couple of weeks if it's absolutely necessary, step in and play exactly the same way. So out of the two, I would say it would be Salah who gets a run if he's fully fit and, available and there's no real risk of re-injury or anything like that. And obviously part of that is the fact that it would be nice if he rediscovered some semblance of penalty box form.
Yeah, well, he's also the one who probably will want to play some part because he's only one goal ahead of Heung-min Son in the Golden Boot race, and he won't want to miss out on a Golden Boot. So Mo will probably push to be on the bench if he's fit enough to be there. But like you said, giving them 15, 20, 25 minutes at the end of the game, if it's put to bed and it's just for them to come on and get into their rhythm and just get used to being on the grass again, that's probably the way forward. So with that in mind, Trent will have to come back in, obviously, because Joe is there. I think Trent would have come back in anyway. I assume Andy Robertson comes back in at left back, so I'm guessing Ali, Trent, Joel, Ibu, and Robbo as the goalkeeper and back four.
Yes, with just one change then for the final, you would expect. And
yes, with Virgil to come in.
Yeah, and at this point, I would like to ask you, assuming that is the lineup for this game, and assuming both centre-backs put in an 8 out of 10, keep a clean sheet, who are you picking to start the final right now?
Ibu, because my biggest worry for the Champions League final is Vinicius and his pace down that side. Now, Trent has been outstanding defensively of late, but I do think having Konaté's recovery pace inside helps him more than when Matip is there. I think most of Trent's best defensive performances this year have come with Konaté next to him. And I thought Konaté's performance in the FA Cup final was outstanding. I would probably go with him. I don't think anything phases that fella, so I'd probably go with him. And I know that's really harsh on Joel, but Ibu's been the one starting the Champions League games. So I think that's probably where I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, for the last, since the semi-finals, basically, going on the assumption that Matip would be starting the final because it was going to be Benzema. And with his movement and intelligence, Matip's probably the one I would trust more to be there. But what you've just said is kind of the point now of why I'm on the fence about which one I would really choose to play, because nothing really has bothered Konaté. No type of forward has bothered Konaté. Neither side, left or right of the defence, has bothered Konaté. And over the last 3 months, taken all of the defenders, in fact, performances into the equation, I think he's actually been the best of them, including Van Dijk. I think he has put in 4 now really, really top draw performances in big, big games. So, I mean, FA Cup, he played every single minute of that competition right the way through. Didn't miss a minute, kept a clean sheet in the final. Absolutely perfect. He's been given...
Was monstrous in the semi-final as well.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He really, really was. A goal and an assist, obviously, along the way to get to the final, but that was his competition, really, because he's been given his chance to obviously bed himself into the Premier League. He's only played 10 games in that competition, and that's fine. But it's a really, really big decision, and I honestly don't know which way I think Klopp will go. Not which way Klopp will go, but which way I think Klopp will go, because I keep going backwards and forwards, and at the minute, he's definitely got the edge in terms of form. I just wonder whether the really, really cleverness of Benzema, young defenders at some point come up against someone who does give them the next lesson that they need to learn,
Yeah.
And do you want that to be Benzema in the Champions League final?
No, that is the thing. Now, I think it's a harder decision for Klopp as well, because Konate is likely starting the last 2 league games. Because if he wasn't, he could probably look at it and say, well, look, he hasn't played since the FA Cup final. Virgil and Joel have played the last few games. They've got their rhythm. Konate would be cold coming in for the Champions League final. We'll go with Joel. But the fact that Konate is playing in these games and playing exceptionally well, I really do think is a headache. Like you said, it's who do you think is the bigger threat? Is it Benzema? Is it Vinicius? Now, Benzema's the bigger goal threat, but Benzema can't do it all by himself. Vinicius is the type of player that if he's on it, he can tear you apart all by himself. Benzema still relies on service. So Ibu's a better Vinicius stopper. Matip may be better suited to playing against Benzema. Benzema's going to try and avoid Virgil for everything he's worth. It's a tough one. It really is a tough. I would go with Ibu because of his pace, and I just don't think anything frazzles him. And when you play next to Virgil, look, we saw Dejan Lovren play in a Champions League final against a better Real Madrid front three than what we'll face next weekend. And Virgil held his hand right the way through that game, and Lovren put in a decent performance. If he can do that with him, Ibu is already levels and levels above Lovren. I don't really know that I'd have all that many concerns. Like, he's gone up against City, he's gone up against Chelsea, he's gone up against, Lautaro Martinez. He's played at big grounds. He doesn't seem fazed by any of it. And with 8 minutes to go, you're holding a lead. If Klopp wants to bring on a centre-back, I think Joel has an easier time stepping into a game that's already going on than a young player like Ibu might coming on in that circumstance.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we've seen Konate come on. Was it the League Cup final he came on as a sub?
Yeah, true.
I mean, obviously, all this talk now, and Klopp's just going to rock up for the final with the back three, isn't he, and play all of them. So,
it would be funny. It would be funny if he did. Right, midfield for this game then. My guess is Naby, Henderson, and Thiago. But is there a case for just wrapping Thiago in cotton wool and keeping him for the Champions League final?
I don't think so. I don't think there is. I think he's shown again, or we've helped him to show that he's fine as long as he's not overused, and he hasn't been. He's going to have had a nice week's rest again now. That he's okay and he's fine and resilient enough to handle a game and then a game and then a game. He's not always played full 90, which is good management of him. He's been left out at times, like against Southampton. I could see him being one of the ones who, we were just talking about Salah, for example, coming on for 20 minutes. Well, maybe Thiago's one of the ones who makes way. But you can't not win this game, really, can you? Let's be honest. It would be dreadful to just make too many changes or go too far below maximum strength to protect people for a different game, and then City do end up dropping points and we didn't get the job done. I think in this situation, with a week's recovery again afterwards, yeah, I'd be playing him. I don't think we have to. It's not so much protect them, but this idea of wrapping them in cotton wool. I think they've shown really good resilience this year. Him and Keita, the way that they've been able to, whether that's their own training, whether it's the club's ridiculously stringent management of them. We've seen in the last few days the reports of like the AI predictors that we've had for fatigue and everything. I think we have to trust this. It's worked. We're 2 games away from the end of the season. There's no specific reason. You can't legislate for, some of the time bad tackles go in or an overstretch and something goes or whatever, but there's no specific reason to suggest you can't possibly play this. We can't leave him out.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair. I think it's absolutely fair. So, I mean, it could be a case where we start him and bring Naby on rather than starting both of them. So Harvey Elliott might get another start. I thought he did quite well against Southampton. I thought Curtis did quite well against Southampton. So I wouldn't really be, against starting one of those two, because we know they're not starting the Champions League final. So, I wouldn't be against starting one of those two with one of Thiago and Naby and then Henderson in as the 6.
In which case it would be Jones for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And give Harvey a run off the bench maybe. Up front then, without Salah, likelihood, if he's on the bench, do you go Mane right, Jota central and Diaz left, or do you start Bobby, who I thought did really well against Southampton?
Bobby was great. He was very, very good. I think I'd start Firmino again, to be honest. I would probably also start Jota again. I thought Jota was better than he has been. Not great and not scintillating in the build-up like Firmino was at some stages, but better, definitely better. Really good work rate. His movement was pretty good. It was more obviously the technical side, where his touch still doesn't quite seem to be there, and the shots which previously would have just bobbled into the bottom corner every single time and now bobbling a few yards wide. I'd be inclined to start him again, even if it's on the right-hand side, to be honest, or maybe him left and Sadio Mane on the right-hand side and leave Diaz on the bench for this one.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about having the 5 really good options is that there's 5 of them. So if one's out, you can still rest one of the others. And then it'll probably be the last time that Divock Origi plays. And obviously in the last game, I assume he'll come off the bench in this one, is my point. The last Premier League game, because he's coming on to score the winner against Real, as we know. The last time we played Wolves, it was Divock off the bench that got us the win. Now, obviously, there are no such thing, Carl, but if there was Premier League script writers, the script is written that we're struggling, City are 1 up, Villa score late, Divock comes off the bench and has the final Divock Premier League moment before he scores the winner in the Champions League final. Or that Taki, who's just been so important to us all season in the Cups and in the league, he pops up with a goal, something along those lines, and we win it late on. That is what the script writers would have in store, but obviously that won't happen. What is your prediction?
For Liverpool or for the title as a whole?
I
think we're going to win this with not ease, not comfort, but in the end, distance. Let's put it that way.
So the type of game where it's tight till 60 and then we score a couple and that's kind of it put to bed?
Yeah, it might be sick. It might even be before half time. It's just going to seem like an eternity before we get that one, The only real fear I have of not winning is if news filters through that City have scored quite early and it goes all a bit flat and the tempo goes down a bit, that kind of thing. It could quite drag out then, and it can be difficult to sort of raise it from that kind of atmosphere. But also we have ridiculously powerful mind-wise players, don't we? And I do think that they'll overcome it, especially with all the first teamers back on and stuff like that. So I'm going to go for I'll go big as the last game of the season. 4-1, 4-0 to Liverpool. Why not?
That's a shout. I'll say 3-0 because Wolves are really bad in front of goal. I think Ibu... I think here's the other thing as well. Both Ibu and Joel will know that there's only one spot against Real. So both of them are going to want that spot. So I reckon both of them have monstrous games at centre-back. Crush that Wolves attack. I think we'll cut them open. I think they've just been shaky defensively for the last couple of months. And I think that continues. I think we win 3-0. But I suppose I have to ask you for your prediction for Aston Villa versus City.
I really want us to do it. I really want them to do it. I really want it to be Ings or Coutinho or Gary McAllister putting a long ball down the line that nobody notices, but I just can't see it.
I can't either. I saw Dublin Damo on Twitter say the other day, his head says Stevie does it, but his heart says Stevie does it for us, and his head is just a picture of Tyrone Mings.
Yeah, that's such a worry. Honestly, it is. I was speaking with Santai about the match at the weekend, and like Emi Martinez has a bit of a knee injury and he may or may not play, and Tyrone Mings is going to play because Ezri Konsa's now out injured, so it's going to be him and Callum Chambers, and Chambers has been pretty good
as well.
Yeah. I mean, Callum Chambers has been pretty good since he went there, to be fair, but Tyrone Mings has been pretty bad since he went there, and it's a lot longer ago.
Yeah, I think. Look, the easiest way for this to happen is just for City to score early and just run away with the game and not fill us with any kind of hope. But who knows? I mean, there's always a twist, and maybe there'll be a twist this weekend. But if not, second to a team that have financially cheated their way to a Premier League title that no one will ever respect. And the bottom line is that, we can just take solace in the fact that they're a bunch of cheating bastards and that we are the real winners of the Premier League this season. But, they're probably taking the trophy home again. Anything you want to plug before we go?
I have a lovely timed piece on Mr. Ibrahima Konate, on the wider brilliance of him for sure, but also kind of showing between where he was at the start of the season and where he is now, pushing for a place in the Champions League final, of what the other sort of squad members can do. We saw them obviously come in and do it for a game against Southampton, but he's shown what it takes to be a first teamer for all those people. So I'll stick that in the chat. I'll throw it on Twitter, and hopefully he's going to get a hat-trick this weekend, and we'll see him dancing around after the game.
Last question. Better signing, Konate or Diaz?
I love Diaz. I've liked Diaz for quite a while, and I'm really, really glad he's here. But I think Konate will probably end up being here for longer, possibly just because of the age, obviously. But we'll see. I'm pretty glad that they're both a part of the regeneration of the team. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, me too. And I'm not sure anybody has made a better signing than either of them in the past 12 months. So great to know that our recruitment is still very, very much at the top of the tree. And that'll do us for today, folks. Thank you, as always, for listening. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.